Thanks very much, Alan, and thank you very much for your assistance tonight. It's greatly appreciated. I'm, as Alan says, Reggie Ferguson, the chair of Save Our Acute Services, which is a group which came together approximately 12 months ago after the removal of emergency surgery from the Southwest Acute Hospital, and everything which we predicted would happen because of that has happened, and worse. So we are as determined now as we were 12 months ago to have that reversed. I just thank you first of all for all coming out on a cold December evening. I'm very impressed with the turnout, and there's been a lot of hard work put in by all the volunteers to my right here. I just remind you that we have a mandate in that we, through our campaigning and organisation and through the people of Fermanagh and Tyrone, we gathered together over 30,000 ballots, as it were, in the consultation process organised by the Trust, and each and every person there adopted and backed a 5-point plan, the main point of which was to get the return of emergency surgery to the Southwest Acute Hospital as quickly as possible. There were other principles in that which were also adopted, including that we would seek to help or seek to have a better workplace in the Southwest Acute Hospital, that we would seek to campaign for an augmentation of the services in Southwest Acute and increase the services. We would look for a cross-border element whereby people from the south could come and use our hospital, and obviously the hospital would benefit financially from that. And so those principles were all adopted, and over 30,000 people adopted those principles, and that cannot be ignored and should never be ignored, and that's very important to remember. All I would ask you tonight is Alan is the overseer. He'll introduce the politicians here. His word is final. I would ask you, if you have questions, to submit them. There might be some period of time at the end of the night for questions from the floor. That depends on Alan. I'd ask you to keep your questions short, to act with decorum, and to allow other people to have a say and not try and hog the microphone. It's a very important meeting tonight because it gives you a chance to ask the politicians what they think, what they have done, and what they're going to do, because it's your vote has put them there. We're very grateful they're here, but it's your vote has put them there. Your vote can also remove them if they don't do what you say, because democracy comes from the people. And I think if it leaves you with two things tonight, it would be first of all, remember the 5-point plan. And secondly, there'd be no harm in getting a little bit more demanding of your politicians and demanding of the public institutions that are supposed to serve you, and no harm at all from the politicians getting a bit more angry about this situation, and perhaps calling for resignations of public servants who are sitting there ignoring you, taking their big salaries, and sitting smugly because they think they're untouchable. Anyway, I'll hand you over to Alan here, and I hope you enjoy your evening.
Thank you to Reggie, and good evening, and you're very welcome to this important public meeting, obviously organised by Save Our Acute Services on the future of emergency surgery at the Southwest Hospital. It's exactly 1 year since emergency general surgery was removed from the hospital here in Enniskillen. Tonight's event is aimed at giving you, the public, the opportunity to discuss the consequences of this decision and the developments which have been happening during that 12-month period. You, the public, will have the opportunity to ask our politicians here what they've been doing to help restore that service through the SWA. Our aim tonight is to focus on three main areas. The first, what has been done by our politicians to restore general surgery through the South West Acute Hospital. Secondly, we want to focus on the importance of that and how important it is felt that the restoration of those services is to the future of the hospital. And lastly, we'll look at elective surgery and its impact on the work at SWA. And it's very important these politicians are here. They are accountable to us, but we also have to respect them. They're doing a job, and I think that's important to remember as well. So we'll welcome them here in alphabetical order. Debbie Coyle is a member of Fermanagh District Council. She is a healthcare assistant and has more than a decade of experience as a local councillor. Tom Elliott was first elected to the Northern Ireland Assembly in 2003. He is a former leader of the Ulster Unionist Party and was re-elected to the Assembly in 2022. I was trying to think about that today. Was the Assembly election this year or last year? Last year, there you are. There's so many. Deborah Erskine, a former journalist. She is a former Fermanagh District Councillor and has regained her Stormont Assembly again in last year's election. Gannon is a teacher by profession and has been a Fermanagh District Councillor since 2019. He is also his party's spokesperson on education reform. Roofe is an Alliance Councillor in Fermanagh Council based in Enniskillen and has been a pharmacist for 10 years. He is his party's first councillor for many years. If we could have a round of applause for him. So the first item that we're going to do is give each of our five panellists here an opportunity to say for 1 minute what they have been doing since last year to ensure that emergency general surgery is restored to the SWA. So we'll start with Debbie over there on the far left.
Thank you and welcome everybody, and thanks for coming out on not a very nice evening. Well, from a council point of view, I chair the Health and Social Care Committee, and we meet with the Trust, and it's very important to us as a council that the emergency surgery is back up and running. As a party as well, we've asked the Trust to provide, as a matter of urgency, a detailed and time-frame plan on how they're going to go around the recruitment and retention of consultant surgeons in our hospital. And that's ongoing work, and that's what we're doing, and we do that as a council, and we're also doing that as a party.
Thank you, Debbie. Deborah, if you go next.
Thank you. It's nice to look out at faces, and thank you as well for coming tonight on what is not a very nice December night. In terms of what I've been doing, I've met with the group. I've made sure that my party leader is kept abreast of everything that's happening down here in Fermanagh, particularly given it's such a rural area. I think it's also important that we're not just looking at this from a health perspective, but that we're also as well looking at this in terms of roads and our infrastructure piece as well, because that's very, very important to consider if we're in a rural area. So I've also been engaging quite heavily with Department of Infrastructure in relation to our transport links down here. Also, as well, I've sat keeping engagement with the Permanent Secretary, keeping engagement with the Trust, because I think that is very, very important as well. And I sit along with Tom on the SWA MLA steering group, because I think it's important that if we are to get any services restored at the SWA, that we do have that engagement that is ongoing, and ourselves as public reps feeding into that as well, with your voices heard at the table too.
Thank you, Deborah. Adam?
Thank you, folks. It's great to see so many out. I'm sure, as you all know, when this story came forward last year, it was my own party colleague, Paul Blake, who brought forward the information and challenged the trust on what was happening. And it turned out everything that we had said was going to happen, did happen, and everything was true. As a result of that, what we did and what I did as well is we helped SOAS at the start of their foundation, and we linked up with them to make sure the correct questions are asked, to put pressure on those decision makers. And given that there's no assembly and no storming at the minute, the council has been one of the main bodies for accountability, and we've used that role fully. When it was talked about accountability earlier, I on council successfully proposed no confidence in the trust board and called for resignations, as well as special measures to be taken in place to help run the local area and to get our emergency general surgery back. And importantly, called them out when they lied, because they have lied, they have misled, to the fact at such a point that myself and some of my party colleagues were subject to legal threats from trust because they didn't like being called out. Nothing came of it because we were right and we were keeping them honest, and we're trying to keep them honest. I helped organise numerous meetings earlier this time last year around the county to get the word out and to increase public participation, along with many of the great volunteers from SOAS, and as well as part of that helped organise the Ring of Steel and the event at the forum, the rally, with Dylan, who you can see at the back, Dylan Quinn, again, all the other members there.
Winds up for...
I need more than a minute because there's so much more than that. But I'm sure I'll get a chance to do the rest of it, and there's so much more, folks, but I'll pass on the mic.
Thank you, Adam. Eric?
Thank you, thanks everyone for coming out tonight. I'm only elected in May, but still been doing a lot prior to that. Thankfully, the party allowed me to be part of the consultation response when the emergency surgery was suspended initially, and that was rightly critical of the recruitment process of the Western Trust at the start, and for the years prior to the suspension of service. Since getting elected, I've been on the Health and Social Care panel and have been scrutinising the consultation that came out, and particularly made the point that was clarified and accepted by the Western Trust that they didn't use policies in place to offer incentives to staff for any posts that were in the area. So I've been scrutinising as best I can and break it down in detail to see if we can get answers for decisions that have been made over the past few years.
Thank you, Eric. And Tom?
Okay, thanks, Alan, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out. Thanks for the invitation. Since last year, we have to be blunt about it. This time last year, emergency general surgery was withdrawn from the southwest, and it hasn't come back. With all our meetings, with all our debates, with all our pressures, and I sit on that working group and I challenge the trust, it hasn't come back. And that's where we need more pressure, not just from us as politicians, and yes, we will continue to do that, but we need it from everyone. Because I question, and seriously question, the attempts at recruitment of surgeons to the southwest. I have serious concerns around that recruitment processes that they had. I am pleased that there is a legal challenge in the process, and hopefully that will bring some success. The difficulties at present is that, number one, other hospitals are being put under immense pressure, particularly Altnagelvin, because of patients moving from Enniskillen and the Fermanagh area to Altnagelvin. I just think we have got to try to find a way, not only us as politicians, but all you people as well, and the wider public. The public side of the petitions, as Reggie has said, the public are behind us, but we have got to invigorate them further. Otherwise, my concern is other services may go, and that's a huge danger. And I have to repeat once again, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how much pressure other hospitals are being put under, but we hear about elective surgery in Enniskillen and South West has increased. How much has it increased, and what is it compared to other hospitals like Elliott and Owen? Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Much appreciated to our 5 panellists for their brief introductions there. So I suppose the first thing we'll focus on is the actual decision that was taken. Adam, I'm going to come to you on this one first. Was the Trust given clearance by the RQIA to remove emergency general surgery at Swan?
I don't believe that they were given full clearance for that, and the RQIA has been through its own problems, so there's gaps there. We know for a fact that the previous minister, Robin Swan, in credit to him, had a number of safety standards that he had asked, and they conveniently waited until he was gone from post. It's not often you hear people complimenting other politicians from other political parties, but I have to compliment Robin Swan for his role prior to his having to step down from the executive following the last election. There's a lot of things that I think have been done wrong here. There was issues with consultation with Royal College of Obs in Gannon, which the public were misled on. The wrong information was put out. But I don't think they have the proper clearance. This would be seen as a significant and controversial decision, which means under current legislation, a civil servant shouldn't be able to make that decision. And I think the legal challenge that's being brought by CRQ Services has really strong ground, and I hope to see it succeed.
Thanks, Adam. Deborah, we'll come to you. I suppose, obviously, what contact do you have you had with, say, for example, Michelle O'Neill, who's a former health minister, to try and highlight the decision that has been taken here? And, what has been the result of that contact? Do you feel, has it been a useful one?
Okay, I don't actually, it would be Gemma mainly having contact with Michelle, but the party line is that we want the emergency services back. From a councillor point of view, we bring, obviously the issues come up within our council meetings, and we had that contact with the trust. Michelle O'Neill, as far as I'm concerned, is fully supportive of the emergency services coming back. I don't actually know anybody that's not.
Has she been down? Has your party leader been down here to get a gauge of the position on the ground and met with the campaign group and people who are opposed to the decision?
I'm not 100% if she's met the campaign group, but she has engaged with party colleagues, and she's obviously been to Erskine, but I wouldn't be aware of whether she's met the campaign group or not. Mm-hmm. But certainly through Gemma's office,
So do you think it would be a good thing if she did meet with the group?
Well, if she hasn't and the group who want to meet her, then yeah, why not?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Deborah, from Freedom of Information requests have revealed that the Trust didn't conduct the impact risk assessment. As a party, do you feel, is the DUP confident that the management and governance and accountability within the Trust is safe for people?
So there's the main problem with what happened with emergency general surgery was the fact that this was an unplanned collapse of the service. They were operating on 3 surgeons and 1 locum. I think the standards say that it should be 6. So we were operating with less than what we should have been to begin with, which isn't a good place to start with. But I think then, obviously, I think there was people who left the service and retirements and one thing and another led then to the unplanned collapse. And so it created a very critical situation. Now I can't sit up here and say that it will have come as a major surprise, because the SWA was in that position before. And yes, we can look about, well, why did the trust not do this? Why did this not happen? Why did that not happen? And rightly so, we should challenge that. But I do think
have you challenged
Oh,
the trust on those
absolutely.
points? And what has been the
Absolutely.
response that you've got? Do you think the response has it been adequate as well?
We come back to the point of workforce. We cannot grow workforce in test tubes. You know, people have to be attracted to this area, and that is actually on all of us within this room to ensure that we are going out to champion this area, to ensure that people come to this area, see it as a place where they can live and work in. I'm very proud to be from Fermanagh. I'm very proud to live in this part of the world, and I try to promote that every day in my job. And it's just the same on this particular issue. We need to be attracting talent. We need to be attracting people to this area that will come, see the SWA as a viable option to work, and retain those staff, treat them well, pay them well, and ensure that they stay here in this area.
Okay. Elliott, when did you say you were a councillor from May? I know, I suppose you missed out on 5 months there, but in the 7 months that you have been a councillor, how do you feel that you've done in terms of raising the issue of the removal of emergency general surgery? Have you had any, do you feel it's something that you're satisfied with, or how do you feel about it?
Well, I don't think anybody on the stage would be satisfied until we get an end result that we would like. But the one good advantage of being the only alliance councillor was that I actually sit on the MLA all-party panel, so I'm able to have interaction with the Westvile Trust as well. And they will field difficult questions, and we are there to provide them with those difficult questions. So it's been quite useful.
You see whenever you're asking those difficult questions, I have watched a number of those meetings, and do you feel, is there any sense that maybe you're bombarded with so much information that do you feel equipped to challenge them on particular issues?
Well, my healthcare background definitely allows me to not get bamboozled as such by complicated medical issues and things like that. You know, I would have experience with plenty of different scenarios, so that side of things would be a no, but they certainly will bombard you with data and with explanations. Not all of it to a level of acceptance for us, you know. The problem really is that, you know, it's all well and good having that MLA meeting, but we're there to scrutinise, but we don't actually have any authority to affect decisions. You know, that lies in Stormont, and that lies with a health committee and a health minister.
Well,
So us meeting them regularly, why it's good and why it's important, we can't force them to do anything in that scenario.
I'll stop you on that one. I want to come back to you, Deborah, briefly, because you had mentioned there about recruitment, and am I right in saying that there's been no recruitment since May 2021? And that's the first point I want to ask you about. Second, and briefly, second is Eddie's point about the about not being able to make a decision. You're an MLA, you're able to make the decision.
Well, I'll deal with the first point first of all. I think it was September 2022, albeit it was a trust-wide recruitment process. And again, we questioned on that as well. The standards are set, the Royal College of Surgeons have input into that, and so my understanding is that it is actually quite difficult to go out and recruit, given review of general surgery, which was brought forward June 2022, and the standards that are set by the Royal College of Surgeons. So it's actually very difficult for them to do a SWA only post as a result of that, is my understanding. On the piece about Stormont, obviously we are working towards having Stormont back and devolutionists and a devolutionist party. We have obviously taken the action that we have because there's very fundamental concerns that we have around the window framework. Hopefully those will be resolved, and we're currently...
we don't just stick to the point on the question. I know what you're saying. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And I do think I have to make the point that as an MLA, I still engage with the Permanent Secretary on this. The Permanent Secretary is still aware, obviously, of what's happening as well. There may not be a Health Minister, but it's very important that I, as an MLA, keep that engagement and keep our voice being heard at that table, regardless.
Thank you. Adam, I know you're one. If you make it quick now, one thing I'm not going to do tonight is I'm not going to get everybody to answer every question. So if you don't get a chance to answer the question, don't worry. You'll get your chance to talk briefly.
Very briefly, just on that point of recruitment, I believe it was July 21 was the last time they tried to recruit for Enniskillen, and trust-wide, which did happen in September 22, is absolutely zero use to us, because you can't cover an on-call rota if you're up in Derry or wherever you happen to live, because you're in an Ultney trust-wide role. And just one other point, we don't have two other points. We don't have a recruitment problem, we have a retention problem. We have a full quota, and the South West Acute Hospital and the Western Trust has the worst retention rate of surgeons of any trust, 3 times worse in fact. And to very briefly put my last point in terms of the Royal College Surgeons' input into the guidelines and the guidance, the chair of that and one of the lead men in that, Professor Mark Taylor, I believe is, he's on the board of a private hospital. That is a huge conflict of interest, and that hasn't been pursued. And you can't have that sort of conflict of interest when it comes to public services.
John, I see you, because you're sitting beside me, I can see you writing. I can't see what you're writing, but I can see you writing. Do you want to touch on what, like, obviously Robin Swan was the health minister at the time, that just before the time that the decision was taken, he didn't sign off it. What did that point that Adam makes about recruitment? Is it a case that is it a case that retention? The figures would suggest that it's the fact that the trust hasn't properly gone through a recruitment process.
Well, I suppose my view, as I said it in the opening remarks, is that the recruitment processes and the retention has been poor. Whenever we have been up with the MLS group, we have met a couple of very senior health officials, including a surgeon, who indicated that they loved working at SWA. One of them actually said they had worked in the Republic of Ireland in a hospital. They had worked in 2 different hospitals in England, but they came here to work, and it's the best hospital with the top class facilities that they have ever worked in. So why can they not recruit others? That's the question. Because if they can recruit, excuse me, if they can recruit those people to come, why can they not recruit 6 others for emergency general surgery? And I think that there's a huge gap in that. And I and a couple of colleagues here have agreed to write to the Department of Health, asking them to take over the recruitment process. Because I believe they have been short-sighted. And look, I know Deborah's called it non-planned collapse. I would call it something different. How long was it all planned for? We've heard for a long, long time. Was the retention or the lack of retention, Adam, maybe a policy? Was that a practice that they got into so that they couldn't retain staff, so that the emergency general surgery would have to be closed down? And we heard this time last year the Western Trust say, oh, this is only a temporary measure. But what did we hear Deirdre Heenan and a load of others say in Belfast and in the east of the province? No, this is the right decision. This decision is going to remain. So I have to say, I believe there was a conflict in what those two messages were. In fact, I challenged that at the Erskine meeting, and I challenged it again with the trust officials. I believe there is a conflict, and I would question whether it was an unplanned collapse or not.
Just before we move on, I know there's always one to get in here, but we'll have to keep moving. So just before we move on, is there anybody in the audience would like to? I'll take 2 questions from the audience on this particular subject. Yeah.
Can I just raise just one very, very quick point, and it's a factual point, that in the period from February 2019 until May 2021, the Western Trust did employ 4 full-time consultants to SWA. Okay, so there is not a recruitment problem. The problem is that since then, on the 4 times they've advertised for posts since then, they've always advertised our posts but based in Altogether. That's exactly what's happened. So there isn't a recruitment problem at all.
There's a man down here in the glasses. Okay, just wait for the mic there.
So the council had a no confidence motion in the trust. And now I look at the strategic review body, which is run by the trust, effectively, and it is all the same members that took the decision to remove emergency general surgery from the SWA. And our chairman of the council and our council CEO are both members of that board. Are we not just letting the fox back into the chicken house again? I mean, you know, what does a motion at council of no confidence in the Western Trust actually mean?
David, I know you're one of 3 councillors on that, and I haven't been talking. Perhaps we haven't heard from you for a few minutes. Well, what's your view on that in terms of the council's role?
What do you mean? I'm not sure.
Well, the audience member here mentioned, you know, he was talking about the no confidence motion in the trust. Do you feel that the council has any power or has any influence in all of this?
Well, I'm not sure how much power we have, but I'd like to think we have influence. And, you know, things, the relationship between the council and the trust, you know, during this time wasn't that good. We started to build that relationship back up because the only way to solve problems is to meet with each other and talk and share views. You know, this issue is really, really important, but it's not an issue that always comes up. Certainly didn't come up during the election. It doesn't come through our constituent doors. People have lots of, I know you don't like what I'm saying, but you know, people have a lot of issues around community care, about A&E, maybe around maternity, about other issues in the hospital, and this isn't always the first major issue. Now, as a council and as chair of the Health and Safety of the Social Care Committee, it's very, very important to us to keep this conversation with the trust going and trying to hold them to account, because there isn't anybody that doesn't want emergency surgery back. I work in hospital and I've been there years. I was in the old hospital. It's really, really important that we keep our surgeons, that we keep our medical staff, that we keep our nurses, that we keep our healthcare assistants and all the staff that's in the hospital. There isn't anybody that we want to lose. So we keep the conversation going. It's really, really important, and I feel as passionate about it as you do.
But I want to ask you, Debbie, you made a point there, and I think it's worth maybe elaborating a wee bit on that point. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. You said about this wasn't really an issue that was coming up in your constituency office.
It doesn't. It's not a
major issue.
It's not a major issue that comes. It's an issue that comes up.
Yeah.
But it's not the number one issue that comes up with regard to health. Okay, because care in the community is the absolute number one, and then emergency services, waiting times, operation waiting times, all those, they come in on a daily basis.
Well, what does the audience think about that? Do you think is that fair? You know, would that be a fair reflection of what people in the audience think about the fact that?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Chairman, I have a folder here full of people's that they've written themselves, and it's the complete opposite, Debbie. Yeah. What you say, I have it here in their own handwriting, dated. Everything there in that folder, and I'll show it to you before the night's out, and I'll show it to all the other. It's terrible.
Yeah,
If I can just say that, I'm not saying it's not an issue for some people, okay? What I'm saying, and it's going to affect everybody at some time.
It's the thin edge of the wedge, though. It'll be the start. It's only the start of what's going to happen. That's the problem.
Well, hold on a second. I'm not going to take a lot of people from the audience, you know, shouting up. If we have a question, we'll come to you. But I want to ask that question first to the other council members.
I just want to confirm that every single party sitting around this table wants emergency services back. We're not here to argue with people on the floor to say that we don't want it. We're here and we're working with the trust to get it back.
Okay, thank you, Deborah. Adam. Now, I'll come to you, Deborah, in a second.
Way to take it now.
No, give it to Adam first. I probably should have, but it's all right. Go on ahead, Adam. Very quickly now, though. I don't want to spend a lot of time.
Question, Tom. I think it is there, if I can see right with the lights, but a couple of points. I was the person who proposed that, no confidence. And statutory, legally, the council has no power. That's just a matter of fact. It's a sad reality of the situation. It was symbolic, and I feel it was hugely symbolic. Something like that has never been done. And as the only sitting body democratically elected in the north at the minute, it was speaking for the people. Now, I think that the strategic review body, we went to that and agreed to go to that under a watching brief, willing to pull out at any moment. It's very much about being there to hear what's being said and to get the information, because that's what's so important. You have to be in the room to get the information. As well as that, you know, civil servants, unfortunately, without Stormont, without an executive, are totally unaccountable. They just are. There's nothing. We call on them to resign as councillors, but it's up to MLAs and ministers and the lack of government.
Adam, I want to put a point to you here. Adam, just a wee second. Civil servants, to be fair, are, you know, they are, Tom or Deborah, who are MLAs, can correct me on this, but they're government employees. I know that you can ask them to resign, but is there a compulsion on them to resign? Deborah or Tom?
Not with a council, we call on them. The only authority that the council has is with their own staff. So if they brought forward a motion to sack the chief executive of the council, I'm not even so sure that politicians, if the assembly is up and running, could actually sack the Western Trust chief executive. That is a matter for their board.
Yeah.
They have a board who run that, and I suppose that gives a bit of cover. You know, obviously, we can put huge pressure on through the Department of Health, so that's quite clear. But you know, there's so many laws now as well that you just can't sack people like that. But like, the main thing to me is keeping the pressure on. And like, I keep saying this, it's a matter for everybody. The council can do it, we can do it, the public can do it, but we have got to retain proper services in the Southwest Acute Hospital. Like, I have to say, I have people come from all over the world to look at the Southwest Hospital. Maybe it's not all over the world, but certain parts. And and they think it's one of the first-class facilities, health facilities that they have ever been in. Why they can't retain services, I don't know. And maybe everybody that comes into our office doesn't just say, we need emergency general surgery back. But I can tell you what nearly everyone comes into the conversation about is the Southwest Acute Hospital. We must retain it, we must retain services, and we must make it a viable working hospital.
Sorry for bypassing you a wee bit, but go on ahead.
I'll forgive you. I used to work with Alan, so he knows me too well. The only thing I would say in relation to the Chief Executive, and Tom's right, in terms of what he says, it's all right saying we've no confidence in somebody, but what is the option? What comes next? And that is the question that I would like to ask in terms of who do you put in? Because the health department, if you're asking the health department to take over, the health department has a review of general surgery, and I'll just read out a little snippet. Some hospitals will not meet these standards as currently configured. This means a higher standard of care will be delivered by reconfiguration or service delivery. And I go on. The result may be a change in provisions to ensure better patient outcomes. That is part of what was said in relation to review of general surgery. So, with the review of general surgery, only 2 out of the 8 hospitals were actually going to be able to meet some of the standards that were within it. And all of these parties, all of us sitting up at this table know that. So we shouldn't be hiding behind that, because when Robin Swan brought that document out, some of the standards were set within that. So my question is really, if you're calling to the Chief Executive's head and for resignations, who do we put in? Who would you like to see in place? Because we really do have to work together, and the Chief Executive we're in the meetings with. We want to see emergency general surgery back. Again, I reiterate what Debbie said, none of us up at this table are sitting there going, this is a brilliant thing that's just happened. We want to see emergency general surgery back. We want to see surgeons in place. But I go back to my other point. There's not the surgeons. We can't get the surgeons here, and we can't get them here. So, I go back to that point again.
Okay, thank you. Now, we're going. Maybe there's a couple of people that might want to. The woman just 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll come to you in the front row then. Yeah.
No, I just have a personal experience from this week. I have an 87-year-old mother who. Oh, sorry. No, just have a personal experience from this week. I have an 87-year-old mother who has been living independently. She fell and was outside by herself for nearly half an hour. Then the ambulance was called. We were waiting 55 minutes and told not to move her yet. An ambulance hadn't been dispatched. We had to then take a decision. She's going to get pneumonia. Brought her to hospital, put her into the car. Arrived at the hospital, there were 2 ambulances there who did just eating sandwiches, but they hadn't been dispatched. That's not their fault. They said they'd just come back from Armagh. They hadn't been in the vicinity. At the end of her care, didn't want her to stay in hospital, wanted to get her home. They said they'd be confident on an Opens clinic, which is the old person's assessment logistics service, which kicks in occupational therapy, physio, frailty clinic. And they said they would be contacting me the next day to give her care to maintain her independence. They then came back and said, I'm really sorry, that service is gone since yesterday. Monday, it was cancelled. So then they said, please raise that in your meeting. Debbie, you mentioned about community care. This is community care. I can't help but think, this is just, what is this? Is this a knock-on effect? Is this, I would like you to tell me, is the Opens clinic available elsewhere in other areas, or is this a knock-on effect of us losing services. Where are our old people going to go? Where's my mother going to go? She's living with me. I've got somebody in to care for her this evening, so I could be here. So where does that leave us?
It's a fair point, and it's one, I suppose, that I want to move on. Before I move on, it's worth pointing out in relation to the discussion we had there about the council. The Strategic Planning and Performance Group is accountable to the Minister for Health and responsible for the planning, improving and overseeing the delivery of effective, high quality and safe health and social care services for everyone in Northern Ireland within available resources. Now, your story would appear to suggest that that's not happening because your mother is in a particular situation, and it goes on to the general point about the impact of the removal of emergency general surgery. And most of us I live in a rural area. Many of the people in here might live south, Fermanagh, wherever. The impact of not having emergency general surgery, if there is an emergency, like Tom, you're from a farming background. The number of accidents that there are on farm premises, like what has the impact been of the removal of the emergency surgery?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. And to deal with the question, I can't actually answer where that service is available, but I suppose it's almost realistic to think there's another service gone or disappeared within a short space of time, and that's the way I would look at it. And again, this is the drip feed that I'm concerned about, where we have a state-of-the-art hospital but we're still losing additional services that we should be bringing more to, as opposed to losing them. On your wider point, all I can go by is some information that I've been told by people that have went to the Southwest that have had to go on. In fact, one just last week where her husband brought her to the Southwest Hospital. They, I think, x-rayed, said they couldn't do anything. She'd have to get an ambulance to Elliott. Waited for about 4 hours, no ambulance. Her husband eventually brought her to Elliott. When she got to Elliott, she had to go into the emergency department again. Couldn't even go straight in. And she needed surgery, and had surgery as soon as she got through the system. Well, it took about another 6 hours to get through the overall system. So that's all I can give you on the sort of evidence from people that are coming to me and telling me these stories, and those are factual. So it is having an impact, and not only are we losing that service, it's having another impact on Elliott, where it's increasing theirs. On the recruitment, I just want to say again, and I want to reiterate this, we have heard other people, health professionals, some of them retired, who have said they should be able to recruit. There are recruitment processes that we can do, and you know, the health professionals just want to see Reggie here, it's a wee bit like the legal profession. Some says you're right and others say you're wrong. But in my view, I think the recruitment process should be much better and tailored towards the Southwest and not just the Western Trust.
I'll come to you on this one. Like, do you feel, the impact of these services being removed? Has it had a knock-on effect on other services? Because not only within the hospital itself, but outside in terms of ambulance and, the knock-on impact of this. How do you feel about it? And
well, as a worker in the hospital, I would, you do see the impact. I was away on Monday, actually. I'm not aware of that, and I'll certainly find out more about that and maybe talk to you afterwards if you want us to find out about that, your mum's particular situation. But services for our older people, I say it's just shocking. I've been a healthcare assistant from 1986, and I have to say nothing's really improved throughout all those decades. There might be up-to-date paperwork on it, but really, the service that our older people get really isn't that much better than I was working in 1986. But I've heard also of ambulances, and when they get to A&E, the ambulance drivers have to queue up with the patient that they've got, and when they get to out in Galvin, they have to queue up again. It is not a good situation. It's not a good system, and there does need to be changes there because people will be suffering.
Care moved to the Féin hospice last month as well.
Yeah, but it has, but we do have palliative nurses in our hospital, and I can't say we don't, because I work with people that are dying every day. I'm on shift, and we have palliative care in our hospital. So, and during the day, they will come in to our patients. I work on the medical ward, which was the COVID ward, and I can tell you as a fact there are palliative nurses on our ward.
Yeah. Deborah, I suppose it's a very difficult situation for staff as well as the general population, because do they, from your contact, how do they feel about all of this?
Just to say on that point with the older people, could you chat to me afterwards? I would really like to try and raise that for you, and if I could get your details to raise that, because it is a serious issue that does need raised. And that's what I would say. If there are issues like that, we need to know them as public representatives to be able to bring that forward. I have no crystal ball or magic wand in my armoury, so I can only do what people come to me with. So on an issue like that, certainly I will raise that for you if you could get in touch with me just after. On staff, and I see Donal in the room, but staff do need to be adequately paid, and when it comes to the likes of care in the community and things like that, to ensure that we're retaining staff, they need to be valued, they need to be paid adequately to ensure that they are retained within the service. And I know, having spoken to staff within the trust and staff within the health service as a whole, that is a major thing, is just that sense of worth and pay and respect as well, because I have to say our health staff do get abuse on wards and A&E and things like that, so on a daily basis, and that is what has come back to me.
Okay, thank you, Deborah. Adam, we have a question in from a member of the public here. Why have none of the parties spoken out in condemning this situation?
I have. I've been there, I've spoken out. I called no vote of no confidence in the trust board, and in terms of the party, our party fully support us. The Western Trust boss went to our party leader to try and tell him to get the SDLP and Fermanagh in the line. He was told where to go. He was told that wasn't on, and that we were representing the party unit, and that is how it is. And in addition to that, I brought Matthew O'Toole, who will be the leader of the opposition, if there's to be a stormont established to meet so us. And we're committed to ensuring reform of the health service, and not just this kind of blanket reform of the health service that's talked about, but reform of the health service that takes into account geographic need. It's not about population density. The location is key in all of this.
So just before we move on that subject, we'll take a couple of questions from the audience. Yeah, I've come to you in the front row because you had your hand up. I don't think I came to you, so if we have a mic there. Just for anybody anybody's asking a question, there are roving mics. It's better for people to be able to hear what you have to say. Go on ahead.
Thank you very much. It's interesting to see that we kind of diverted from what the core thing tonight is, and it's about emergency general surgery. In relation to what the council have said, and I commend you, Adam, for calling for special measures. When you called for special measures over a year ago, the SOAS group have actively collated a very substantial body of evidence to advise further and the concerns. We've discussed the risk assessment. I have never known of any hospital anywhere that would consider it appropriate to remove an emergency general service from a significantly challenged geographical location and for that to be acceptable at any level. The council need to deal with this in regard to that aspect. You cannot remove a service. They failed to conduct, the Department of Health have failed to conduct subsequently, when you take an emergency general service away, what is going to happen to our major trauma? Tommy, earlier we're talking about the farming community, we're talking about our sports arenas, we're talking about our tourism. If you have a ruptured spleen, you are not going to make it from Belcoote and Skillen, never mind Altnagalva. My understanding that the pathway put in place to support that situation is you have an extra couple of blood bags in the emergency department. Not good enough. When you do get to Altnagalva, the trust said, and I have to challenge you, Debbie, in relation to the piece where you say that they can't recruit. They have been actively not recruiting. And the politicians, I think there is a real lack of the sense of urgency that is required to This will also, when you have general surgeons working in a hospital, they have to, and you have your registrars that are not a consultant like, they're required to have a certain exposure to training. If you don't facilitate that, you're going to lose your registrars for your general surgery, but the other impact it will have on is that if you're a doctor working in an emergency department, you have to have a certain number of patients that you examine that have surgical emergencies. They are not going to come. You're going to destabilise your ED. We already have challenges from the Royal College of Obstetricians that have stated that you shouldn't have a maternity service without a general surgeon in the event of complications taking place. We are being failed there again. The people of Fermanagh and South Tyrone demand of our politicians a recognition for the equality of care provision. And we want you, I would like to ask one question finally to all of you. Have all of the political parties written directly to the Department of Health, directly to the Public Health Authority, directly to the Strategic Performance Group, and directly to there's one other, the PHA. They need to actively start this now. There's no point in us sitting here tonight and saying that yes, you agree with us. The political parties have the power, even though that there may be no government in place at the moment. But you still have to have the power and build the body of evidence that when we do go back in and get the executive running, that we're hitting the ground running and these services will be restored immediately. Thank you very much.
That's a very specific question. Have the parties written through those various bodies? It's a simple yes or no answer. So we'll go from Tom.
Well, I can clearly say I've written to the Permanent Secretary on several occasions. I've held discussions with him. The second one, Public Health Agency, I have. The others, I have to hold my hands up, I haven't. But if those are ones that I should be, then I will. There's no question about that. And also, I've written to the other two, along with colleagues, about the recruitment processes as well, to see if they would take that on as opposed to the Westvile Trust.
Eric?
Thank you. Again, the Public Health Agency, I'm not entirely sure the party may have. I'll really check that for you. I'll correct Tom, because you have actually written the SDLP because we've done it as a unit. So that's another one. But yes, I can certainly check on the other for you and ensure that we have, and if they haven't, we'll put a statement through.
Adam?
Thank you. Department of Health, SAPG, yes. Public Health Authority, again, hold my hands up and say, didn't do that one, but that'll be done.
But importantly, we do need a government to take these decisions.
Deborah, I'm going to come back to a couple of those points, by the way. Just go on ahead, Deborah.
Yeah, exactly the same. PHA I haven't written to, but the other two, yes.
Well, I know Gemma would have definitely written to the Permanent Secretary in the Department of Health. I'm not too sure about the Public Health Agency or the other one that you mentioned, so I would have to check. Okay, because I can't answer that in an honest way. But certainly the Permanent Secretary of the Department of Health definitely has it.
Okay. We're going to take a couple of questions from down around the audience. The man in the glasses there in front of them, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to...
Just keep the questions quite brief.
I just want to go beyond the fluffy talk about how we retain people and get into the specifics about a number of consultants that we have lost over the last couple of years. And I want to talk specifically about what happened, because I don't have a solicitor beside me. But I think if politicians are real here about fixing this problem, they need to start and fix the hole where we can keep losing people. Because the reason isn't random. There's a consistent thread. It needs to be exposed and out in the open. And secondly, one second point to make about the level of interest in the problem in Fermanagh. People believe, first of all, there's nothing they can do about it. Well, they're wrong. There is something they can do about it. People believe the problem as they're aware of it. And when maternity services go, the ship will hit the fan then. And then we'll all know we have that problem.
There's a woman down at the very back beside the man in the red jumper.
Thank you, Alan. Yes, I'm Councillor Diana Armstrong from Herne North, which is a rural constituent, which is a rural district. I'm going back to the point of, on arrival at Almagelvin emergency, going back into the queue again. This is something that I've raised and other councillors have raised with the Trust Chief Executive, and we've been assured that they will be fast-tracked. And this is yet another undertaking that they give us that they do not follow through on. It's the least that we should be given since this temporary cessation of emergency general surgery, that we should be prioritised, because if there is no equanimity there across the board, having to travel in pain, in trauma, with your loved ones having to take you there when an ambulance is not available, it just really isn't good enough, despite the words of the Chief Executive, and it's actually not happening.
This is a very important point about the impact of this, because obviously when you're in a traumatic situation, time is of the essence. So if there's anybody who wants to ask a question in relation to that, the one in the front row, because when all the talk about questions being asked, that is the key, is when people are in a serious situation. Go ahead.
I just want to make a point, to be honest. I think that this time last year was the time for a lot of what we're hearing from the top table. I think, based on the evidence that we've gathered as a campaign, I can honestly state that the Royal College of Surgeons has a requisite, which everybody sitting up there does know, that you need to live within 30 minutes of the population you serve. Therefore, why have you not shouted, when you're with Mr. Guckian, that a surgeon based in Derry cannot serve a patient 2.5 hours away in Maherville or in Garrison? No matter where you are in Fermanagh, you are not. You're the only part of Northern Ireland, the one county, and a part of Tyrone that do not have a service within that time frame. So we are uniquely second class as we sit here. I also would like to counter some of the assertions from the top table. Stormont was not required to remove our surgery. Do not allow us to ramp up a body count while we wait for Stormont to sit again. You are elected representatives at whatever level that is. I've also heard quite a lot tonight about documents that you have sent on behalf of the public. As a member of Save Our Acute Services, I've never seen any of that. I would welcome that being made public and shared with the public, not with our group. And finally, I want to talk on trauma. I'm sitting here in front of a poster which is written about farming, and I'm very mindful that we held a very respectful event on the 12th of November at which we had members of the industrial community, we had farmers, we had sporting industries, we had all of the locals involved in what was a community day. It was a community 50 minutes of respectful conversation about the very dramatic and frightening impacts of having a traumatic event. And the trauma centre in Northern Ireland is based in the Royal Victoria Hospital, and it depends on us reaching there in 45 minutes. They have had to adjust the rules governing the population down here because we don't fit in the Royal by ambulances inside 45 minutes from the south of Fermanagh. I think that we need to very much highlight the fact that damage control surgery and damage control resuscitation is missing from our hospital. We are on a bypass situation, and as Karen has mentioned there, if you have a bleeding or a penetrating trauma, the Western Trust actually have stated that you should go to Sligo. And again, as 5 people at the top table, I assume you all know that is illegal, both due to the credentials of the paramedics not being acceptable as they cross the border, unless it's a humanitarian crisis. So therefore, what do we do? Do we watch people in car crashes, in complex sporting injuries, in man versus farming accident, or in a factory in Severfield, in Bacchus, you name it? Do we watch our population die? I think you need to really bang your heads together and realise this is a community, it's not just an event. These are our lives. And I think it's really
I think maybe we'll ask that. There's a young man down a couple of rows down. Maybe we'll get him to ask his question and then we'll come back to the panel. It's not often you get a young man prepared to ask a question, so the floor is yours.
I'm autism, man. I got knocked down and I had to wait hours for an ambulance. Then I had to move to hospital.
I'm going to come to you first, Ellie. This is very.
Sorry, he's not finished.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was really scared when I was breathing.
No, he's really shy, sorry.
Thank you. As we were saying, this is very powerful testimony that we're hearing from various people. But you 5 are the only people in this room that have the facility to be able to influence the people who are making these decisions. So the question is, what are you going to do to highlight this? Because it's, do you feel you've done, I don't know if people have done enough, but the mood in the audience is that something needs to be done. So, Eddie, you're in the council 7 months. What are you going to do in the next 7 months to highlight this and really highlight it? Not just, not just pussyfooting around, pardon my language, but you know what I mean.
Well, firstly, thank you and well done for telling us your story. I'm very sorry that was what you had to experience. That has to be taken in the context of the problems that the ambulance service already have, on top of the extra struggles they now have to be transferring people up to Gannon for emergency surgery. So there was already a burden on them to provide an adequate service for you, and that only made it worse. And that is incredibly disappointing. What I would say is that particularly for autism, they are now, most hospitals, I'll have to double check whether the SWA also does, but most hospitals now have a separate waiting facility for autism, but SWA doesn't exactly. I've been working with Sands to open up a maternity unit for bereaved mothers in next week or 2 weeks in time, and that's something similar we need in the A&E for autism, so that the wait is actually something that's not so stressful. Sorry, I just want to
I appreciate that, but we want to move forward with this. We want to know what people are going to do, because emergency surgery has been moved. It's been moved for a year. What are we doing to get it back?
Well, look,
now it's right.
The reality is that it should have required legally a health minister to make that decision at the time. I know.
5 years. How many years is Stormont sat?
You're preaching to the choir on that, Helen. You know.
I'm asking as a collective. This is our population, and
yeah. No, I 100% appreciate
I think the thing that people are saying as well. I know that, but I think the thing that people are saying as well is that we cannot keep using Stormont as an excuse, as a reason, because what happens is the health authorities then they make decisions no matter whether there's a Stormont or not.
Well, if the Stormont was there, the Western Trust could not have closed it without the say of the health minister.
But they did.
But the health minister wasn't in post, and that's the point I'm making, Helen, and that has to be clear legally that the health minister would have had to sign off on that, and because he wasn't in post, they could do that. Okay, they made a unilateral decision that wasn't theirs to make, and we now have no oversight on that decision until we have a health minister. And they could 100% reverse that decision. And what I'm trying to say,
sorry for interrupting again.
To me as a councillor, there's one point, and then you can.
Right. Okay.
I could stand outside the headquarters of the Western Trust for the next 5 years, and it would not make them make a single bit of decision different than what they're doing right now. It would require, from a legal standpoint, they're perfectly comfortable with what they have done, and I completely disagree with it. I think it has left us in a deprived situation. But from a legal standpoint now, the council doesn't have authority on that. The only person that can physically and legally make that chief executive to make a decision against that is a health minister. And that is it's not a comfortable thing to say, but that's the reality. That is the reality. The only person that can make that decision is a health minister with the backing of an executive.
Okay, I'll make a point here. You know, you all are elected representatives. Now, as an elected representative, you're representing the people. If you can't represent them on health effectively, then, you know, you talk about if I stood outside the South West Acute Hospital for the next 5 years, maybe that's what it will take. Yeah. I'm just making the point. Adam, quickly on this one.
I do agree with some of what Eddie said there, but I'll focus on what I'll be doing and what my party will be doing. In particular, we're going to commit to maintaining services in the rural area, and that will be achieved through a hub model where hubs are located geographically with specialties, which can then drop in surgeons.
But Adam, hold on. We're not talking about hubs here. We're talking about emergency general surgery.
Yes, but you need to have surgeons.
You cannot plan for somebody in Rosslea or Balik or somebody
Let me finish my point and address that 100%.
I know that, but no hub. We're focusing on emergency general surgery here. With all due respect, we're not talking about hubs. Concentrate on emergency general surgery. Leave the hubs for another.
For emergency general surgery, you need surgeons. And to have surgeons, you need to have jobs and specialties for them. Okay? And yes, I've been making that case. I went to the trust, and when they said they tried to recruit, I said delight. And that's factual. They have not tried to recruit for SWAT for years. We know that. They're not doing their job. And whether it's planned or unplanned, I think it's more towards planned eventual collapse. That's a bigger issue. But what needs to be done is there needs to be a sustainable model for our health service. And you do need to have something in the hospital.
I'm really sorry for coming back into this. A sustainable model for the health service is one thing. But when doing that, you have to provide, the health service has to provide emergency surgery for people within a realistic distance of their homes. That isn't happening with this here. So we can leave all those other issues aside. The issue that we're focusing on at this meeting is emergency surgery.
Yes, and recruit. It's simple as that. It's not a recruitment problem, it's a retention problem. I've said that. But there is an issue about how we recruit and how we get people. There was a surgeon who did cover emergency general surgery who wanted to introduce bariatric specialty that would train people to do emergency general surgery. And they would work here and live here. Unfortunately, that individual left because their plan was never supported by the trust.
Okay. There's a man in the pink shirt here in the third row. Go on ahead, wait for the mic.
Yeah, I want to make a couple of points about recruitment and surgeons. The panel has very well explained the issue that you can't have surgery without surgeons. Now, as I understand it, the Royal College advised for the termination of our emergency services because there wasn't enough cover. Their responsibility is purely medical, and therefore they made that judgment on a patient safety basis, even though they put us all at greater risk by having to travel these awful distances on bad roads with no ambulances and all the rest. Now, the aspect of this that hasn't been discussed is the finance. And my impression is that underlying all of this stuff is the budgetary situation in Northern Ireland and the lack of finance or the lack of will to finance surgeons in this area. And my remedy, which is a very simple one, is in order to get the surgeons that we need, we have to pay them enough. Simple as. They have to be paid a salary which helps to bring them here and to keep them here. And when we have them here, we have to manage them properly. But it starts with proper recruitment, and it starts with a proper offer of a job. And if the salary has to be increased above that of the Belfast surgeons, so be it. So I would finish by saying this. The focus of the surgeons, of the regulators, is patient safety. But your imperative as politicians is equality of opportunity and equality of health care. And we are not getting that. And if you are told the funds are not there, then my answer to you and to them is they need to change the allocation.
Okay.
They need to shift more funds to us so that we can pay the surgeons so that we can recruit them.
There's a lady at the back, and then we'll come back to the panel with just to address some of those points. And I'm conscious that Debbie and Deborah have been over there and I haven't been to them for a few minutes as well. Go ahead.
I'd just like to say what that gentleman said sort of would maybe back up what I'm about to say. And it's really evident that we really need to take this in our own hands. Why do we need the Western Trust? We have the Spurn and Lakeland Trust. And the Spurn and Lakeland Trust managed to recruit and it managed to retain. This is the only way we pull away from the Western Trust and we have our own trust. Which we did in the past.
Okay. So, I think what we'll do now is we'll move on, because the time's gone, we'll move on to specifics in relation to each party. And I suppose, what do each party, the point that's raised there about workforce shortages. Debbie Deborah, will come to you first. How can that be addressed? Where's this money going to come from whenever Stormont sits again, even before that?
That's exactly my point, and I totally agree with you. It comes back to you can't have surgery without a workforce that is properly paid for the work that they do. I mean, we're a border constituency, and at the minute there are consultants and the workforce, they have higher rates of pay across the border. It's very simple for them just to go straight across the border and get paid in another hospital. Meanwhile, we have our hospital sitting here. We need to ensure that we are paying people adequately to do the job that they are trained to do. And surgeons, it takes a long time to be trained to be a surgeon. So, I mean, that is a fundamental point in relation to recruitment and retaining adequate staff to be able to do the job here on the ground. And I have been making that point up at the Assembly whenever I was on the Health Committee, made that point quite a bit. And I agree. In terms of the rural area, we need to look at saying, is there ways that we even need to look at incentivisation in terms of that? I know that people may not agree with all of that, but we do, and that is a reality that is on the ground, and that's something that I am raising, along with, and I go back to my point again, the fact of our underinvestment in roads here as well, and the lack of good infrastructure that we have.
Yeah. Debbie, where's this money going to come out of? Will Sinn Féin take the finance minister in?
Well, that's for a future decision and not for me personally. But definitely, I agree 100%. We see doctors leaving the hospital and going down south because they're offered so much more money down there, and I suppose who can blame them really? But it does leave us with a shortage. So pay is not just for our consultants, for our nurses, healthcare assistants, everybody that works, the whole team that works within the hospital, all needs much, a fairer pay for the work that they do. But the surgeons in Sligo and Dublin and everywhere are earning a lot more, and if we're to keep them in Fermanagh, we do need to offer them more money. That has come up in meetings in the past with the trust.
But if sorry for interrupting, Debbie, if the trust aren't prepared to recruit, no amount of money is going to incentivise anybody to come.
Our consultants haven't left
So
the money.
So the question comes back, in terms of politicians, how can you hold the trust to account in relation to that? Because the emergency surgery has gone, they said temporarily, and we're a year on.
Well, we will just continue to keep meeting with the trust. We've met with Peter May. It takes standing outside the hospital to get something done. Then I, for one, would certainly be more than happy to do that. Regarding cross-border,
can we leave it? I know about the cross-border issue. Okay. Can we leave that for a wee minute, just because I want to come to Tom on that point? And I suppose the point, Tom, is that people have been raising is the fact that the money doesn't appear to be there, but at the same time
it's about distribution of funds, and that's where the executive can make the difference. That is where they can distribute the funds more equally and fairly to us, the rural communities. And there are opportunities for enhanced payments. There is the right to provide enhanced payments and enhanced attractions for people that you're recruiting in the west of the province. Did the trust do that? My understanding is no. So that calls into question my come back to my original point. Yes, the Royal College of Surgeons have standards, and my understanding is we weren't meeting them, and that's why one of the reasons that it was closed temporarily. But there has been no incentive, there has been no push since then to get it recommenced and restarted. Our own trust, I would be careful in that. Because once you get your own trust in Fermanagh, what's the board's going to do? What's other areas going to do? Mid-Ulster, they're all going to be looking for their own trusts, and that's going to cause more money. One other thing that I will say finally here. You said, Alan, it's not often to disagree with you, you said we are the only people who can influence. You're saying us. Well, yes, we can influence, but we are not the only people who can influence. You people out there, the people who are not here, the people in the communities that you see day and daily can influence. You also said we can't wait and use the executive as an excuse, and you're right. So what can we do now? The only people that have the power to make any changes now is the trust, whether we like it or not. I met the board chairman back in the summer. I suggest that we call the trust board to a meeting. Whether that's here in Enniskillen somewhere, at the hospital, at their headquarters if we have to go. But I'm saying we confront them directly, and we don't leave it at one meeting. We confront them and we confront them and we confront them. Because that is the only way to do it. We confront them. All those politicians meet them regularly. We confront them. But they need to hear from you as well.
Okay. Right. We're going to take, there's a lot of people wanting to come in here to make points. Brian, first of all. If we wait for just wait for the mic, just so people can.
It's not often I disagree with you, Tom, but
There's one on.
You don't know much about me.
Don't worry, I don't know much about religion.
Thank you. I don't mind disagreeing with Tom, and we talk about religion afterwards. I shouldn't ask Panama for what you're talking about. What I'd like to say is there are two things that are bugging me tonight a little bit, and I would like to put it here. First of all, it has been said that money would solve our problem. That is not what the Trust told us. The Trust made a public statement saying that Fermanagh was too rural, too backwoods, that they couldn't get people here to live here, which was a huge insult to Fermanagh. And they didn't mention money. Now, I've been dealing with the Trust personally and in other ways, and I cannot take their word for anything. Secondly, we had a meeting with them in the consultation, and if that's how the Trust deal with people, as they did with us in the consultation, would anyone ever want to meet them again? Because they insulted us, and they reviled us, and they told us lies, and they then went off and said that 30,000 votes was equal to 1. Who wants to deal with that?
Man in the back in the black jacket. Yeah, we'll go to him next. I'm conscious of the time. What way are we fixed for time? I can stand here all night, but I'm sure nobody wants to stand here all night.
What? 9 o'clock?
Okay. Yeah.
Are you happy enough to do that?
So the point was well made there about the fact who would want to deal with the Trust again. Well, I would make the point, and I made this point before, who would want to deal with politicians again? Who's been running this place since the Good Friday Agreement? These parties. The situation that we're in today didn't happen by accident. The health service, the economy, the infrastructure is not in the state that it's in by accident. It's the way it is because that's the way it's been delivered by those parties. My mic's gone. That's the way the thing's been delivered by the parties that the folks up here are representing. Now, local politicians will always stand by the local community and local issues, but where's the leaders? And I made this point before. I don't know if they were invited here or not, maybe not, but whether they were or not, you see, if they were really interested, if this was top of their priority, they would have said to their local representatives, I'm coming along with you, I'm going to be there tonight. The likes of Jeffrey Donaldson, Michelle O'Neill, Colin Gilden, and all the rest of them, they could have been out campaigning, they could have been on TV, on the media, making their point, but they haven't been. The last time when all of this was on TV and on the radio, we got a few speeches made, they went on, they did interviews, we're fully behind this, we support the campaign, then you don't hear from them again. They've got more important issues. Like, there's things like the fact that Sinn Féin think they're going to walk into government now in the south, and they'd be worried that if they take the wrong stance on the health service up here, that it'll come back to them in the south. We're not a priority. Fermanagh's not a priority. Now, I hate to quote the man himself, but it's time to put Fermanagh first. The people of Fermanagh have acted like turkeys voting for Christmas at the last election, voting for the same parties again. They'll achieve nothing by doing that, because they've all got vested interests. They've all got bigger priorities outside of Fermanagh. The leaders don't care about Fermanagh. There isn't enough votes. And like it was mentioned earlier on as well, that if we were to take over the trust here, that in other rural regions they'd want to do the same. They want to avoid that. They've already agreed that they basically want to have 3 hospitals in the north. That's what they want. And maybe medically there's good arguments for doing that. But the thing is, when they built the SWA, we were promised roads. They haven't even built the road from Owen down to Skillen that was supposed to be done. There's still 2 or 3 parts of that that still haven't been brought up to the level that was promised. How long ago was that? Lies! That's what it is, it's lies. And I would plead to the people of Fermanagh. Now, it was mentioned earlier that if we lose maternity, this is the thin end of the wedge. If we lose maternity, it was mentioned that then the people will rise up. Then they'll start complaining, well, I have a bigger worry, God forbid this happens. But due to the situation with the emergency surgery, somebody dies. And then the people will get up on their feet. But that, we shouldn't wait for that. The people need to get up now and make it be known that we won't stand for this, that it's not good enough, that we're not second-class citizens, that the people of Fermanagh deserve equality of treatment and opportunity with everybody else. Now,
for the last few minutes, I want to ask a question of our 5 panelists. A couple of quick questions. First one was, does everybody at the top table, how do you feel that this is this a pre-planned ploy by the Trust, that eventually they will remove emergency services and then other services will gradually be removed bit by bit, and the people of Fermanagh will be left with really, no emergency care, and that's very sick. How do people feel about that? Come to you first, Elliott. Very briefly, I don't want people to labour on this point or not.
Well, I think most people here you take the word unplanned with a very large pinch of salt. But in terms of the sustainability of the hospital and the viability, I make it very clear that we currently can't provide enough services for the people that we need to with the current hospital structure. So removing services, acute services from the South City Hospital would just simply physically not be possible to maintain a health service in Northern Ireland. It just we currently have people on 3-year waiting lists, 4-year waiting lists for things. Mm-hmm. We need more doctors, we need more clinics, we need more hospital beds. So it would from a structural infrastructure purpose, a word like the South West City Hospital would just be completely unviable across all of Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Because it would pressurise Altogether, which is already a breaking point. It would pressurise Craigavon, which is already considered. We don't see as much because they're not Western Trust, but they're just up against the wall when it comes to winter pressures.
There's a woman I'm sorry, there's a woman had her hand up for quite a period of time.
My name is Pauline Corrigan and I'm part of the Save Our Acute Services campaign. And back in March, a group of us, I'm self-employed, so when I don't work, I don't get paid, unfortunately, not like some of the politicians. But I took 2.5 weeks off, and a group of us went around Fermanagh and South Tyrone. And we got, because we hadn't a proper consultation process, we weren't allowed to speak at that. So we 5-point plan with the force groups came over. We went around Fermanagh and South Tyrone at our own expense, photocopying at our own expense, everything at our own expense. We got 30,269 people to back the 5-point plan. The Trust came out and they said they had 101 responses. They counted 30,269 people, most of these people in this room, as one person. Now, what did your politicians, you should have been shouting from the rooftops, because if you have 30,269 people voting for you, and the electoral office counted that as one, would you not be shouting from the rooftops? Did any of you shout? Disgrace the way we've been treated. And you know what? What are you going to do now? Don't say you wrote to this and wrote to that and whatever. What are you going to do now, tomorrow, to get our emergency surgery back? There's women in Fermanagh who's afraid to have another baby because they're running the risk of an emergency or surgeon not being there. How disgraceful is that? If you said in Africa that a woman had to go to over 2 miles for 2 hours to give birth safely, you would say that was a disgrace. This is happening in Fermanagh. This is happening. And you are sitting there saying, well, you said, Debbie, well, nobody's really concerned about health.
That's not what I said.
You said that wasn't the number one priority in emergency. This is real. This is real. And you need to get real because we voted you in. And you need to tell us tonight, we've heard enough garbage, what you are going to do from tomorrow onwards to get this emergency surgery back. We are fed up.
Right, Deborah?
Right, just to clarify that I did not say that people don't think it. What I said was it didn't come up when I was canvassing and it doesn't come up in our constituency office. That is what I said. And I mentioned other priorities, so please, if you're going to quote me and say what I actually said. I would declare an interest because I work in the hospital, I work in A&E, and I certainly do not want A&E and any of our emergency services going. I work there, my pay depends on that. I'm a counsellor, you can't live off a counsellor wage. I depend on my healthcare assistant wage, which is low pay. And it's vital that all our services stay within our hospital. And we will continue.
Emergency, I know. Emergency services. What are you, and will come to each one, going to do to get those services back?
Well, we will continue to object and meet with the Trust, to meet with, as a party, with all the Trust and the Department of Health and permanent secretaries and all the things that we have to do it. I'm in the trade union within the hospital, so issues come up that way as well that I'm able to deal with through my work in the hospital, and that will just continue. We're all together. I live in Fermanagh as well. The hospital affects me. My grandson needed surgery. He was rushed to Belfast. That was 13 years ago. So it affects all of us, all of the time. If it's not my family, it's Deborah's family. Nobody, we should all be working together. Not opposing each other or trying to fight with each other or blame one group over another group, because it affects every single one of us. We all live here. We all pay our rates here, our taxes here, we all use that hospital. But thank goodness I don't have to. Well, when you talk about waiting lists, I have to wait 6 years for my ankle to be operated on. But there you go, that's just, I'm okay. I'm not happy, but I'm okay with it at the minute. It's not an emergency. But we need to work together on this, not put a divide between us and you. We are all the same. Well, from tomorrow onwards, I will carry on. I'll be reporting back the feedback for tonight.
How's it worked so far?
Hold on a second. With all, everybody has done, I know what you're saying, and that has been done for the past year, but hasn't worked.
No, it hasn't worked, but we can't stop doing it. Just because it hasn't worked, we can't stop doing it. So we have to, you know,
So what do you do
engaging
differently?
with-
What do you do differently from tomorrow
Get
that
Michelle
it's
O'Neill
going to
down.
work?
Well,
Get Michelle O'Neill down. Get Michelle
well,
O'Neill
you
down.
know, I can certainly speak to Michelle, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
But, you know, Michelle O'Neill was not going to get the surgeons back in either, you know, so we will have party engagement.
But she'll bring.
We will have party engagement, but, you know, bring in particular...
She's not
But
interested.
surely the presence of Michelle O'Neill here on this specific issue as the designated First Minister would send out a very strong message. So surely that's something that should be done.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Tomorrow, that will be the first thing I would do, that I would feed all that back out and that's what
Deborah?
I mean, I agree with Debbie in that, you know, we have to continue working together on this. I mean, it can't be politicians up here. You know, I'm not sitting in an ivory tower anywhere. The SWA is my hospital too. You know, my family have to use the SWA. I may, for whatever reason, need to use the SWA. And hopefully I don't have to use it tomorrow or anything like that, but certainly I will be working to ensure that the services are there whenever I need them.
But again, Deborah, you've been doing that for the past year and it hasn't worked.
And again, I go back to the point that Debbie made as well. It doesn't mean that we just stop. We keep going. This is a continuous road here that we have to continue down, working together, using our voice here in Fermanagh and South Tyrone to make sure that we have the best on our doorstep. Tomorrow, Jeffrey Johnson is in this constituency. I'm meeting him on a range of different things together. Well, yes, he isn't here tonight, but I'm here tonight as a local elected representative. Jeffrey has met, I'm going to make this point. Jeffrey has met with the group twice. No, but hold on a minute. Just because nothing has come doesn't mean that something isn't going to come yet. We have to keep working on this, and we have to keep working together. There's no point in sitting shouting at you know, I'm making the point. There's no point in pitting against each other here. We live in this county.
Why is the media not being used? Why is the media not being used? You know, the media. Why don't they tell some of these stories to the media? Stand up and tell them.
I'm not the person who facilitated who was invited tonight. I got an invitation and I came tonight, regardless of whether you think what I said up here was garbage or not. I put forward my case, and I will keep doing that, along with the representatives that are up here at this table, along with whoever will listen to the case of the SWA and Fermanagh and South Tyrone.
Thank you, Deborah. I think it's important to note that, you know, the five panellists are here, and in fairness, they are asking the questions or answering the questions. But I think what I'm trying to do is we're trying to, the time for talking is fine, but we're a year down the road in terms of talking, and you know, experience teaches us to realise that, you know, when you're talking too much, there's no action at the end of it. And I know the point that you're making, Deborah, but thank you. Adam.
There's a couple of points I want to pick up on there.
But thank you
answer question, but there's a thing with plan. You asked me a question earlier whether I thought it was planned or unplanned.
Okay, we'll keep it.
And I think it's intentional. Just to put that out there. There was a question asked about counting 30,000 as one. They didn't count 30,000 as one. They counted it as none on the responses. They didn't count it as one consultation response. And I met with the Western Trust and other councillors and challenged them on this. And they got very rally and very moody and refused to answer my question. Unfortunately, I wasn't let back in the application. The chair didn't let me back in to press home the issue.
What was that meeting?
That was a meeting of the well, the council's health and social care subcommittee,
Right.
which I believe there's other councillors here.
Yeah. So you were, I presume, was that a Zoom meeting? Was it virtual?
I had to go virtual
You
because
had
I
to
was
go
at
virtual,
work
yeah.
and got finished up in work and went straight up.
And what complaints did you make after that? Because it would seem, did you feel that was, obviously you felt it was unfair, but was it illegal?
Well, there is a legal case going in, and one of the things I will do after tonight is I'm going to contact people in SOAS and see how I can support them and if council can support them in that legal case in what way we can. Some things might be feasible, some things might not be feasible. I'm not a solicitor, so I can't tell you whether it's legal or not. What it certainly was, though, was morally reprehensible and wrong. In terms of another thing that our party is doing, and I know people don't like this answer, but we need to get a government up. We're possibly the only opposition party in the world that is trying to get people into government rather than out of government, and that's something that needs to be noted. And I want to take one last point now, if you let me. There's people here who's come up a few times about people's interest in this and the wider interest that people have in voting on this and whatnot. People here, and preaching to the converted, all care deeply about this. We have to think about the people out there. There was an election earlier this year, and some of the most vociferous and passionate voices for our hospital did not get re-elected. And these are people I disagree with, and I can see in their Donald, I disagree with Donald on many things, but that man wasn't re-elected. One of my party colleagues, Paul Blake, the man who put his neck in the line, threatened legal action, brought this forward, wasn't re-elected. Another man I maybe disagreed with on a hell of a lot of things, Amy Keenan, he put a lot of effort in his area going around meetings and getting stuff sorted, wasn't re-elected. Very few of the people who are actively involved in campaigning were re-elected, and the people here have a job tonight to go out and say to everyone, you need to vote for people who will do stuff. You need to vote on this hospital, because the results show that Debbie actually is correct, that this wasn't the main issue for most people. It just wasn't. Otherwise, we'd have the likes of Donald would have been re-elected in that council with a stonking vote, but it just didn't happen. And I'm saying that as someone who disagrees with Donald on many things, who've had many debates. That needs to be the message. People have power, and it's in your hands to go out from here tonight and tell as many people as possible.
So Alan, just to put you on the spot here, the next time that there's a council meeting, the health subcommittee on the council, what are you going to be saying about this? Because it might not come up, but there's always an opportunity for councillors to bring up issues. And, you know, I pressed Deborah and I pressed Debbie on what they were going to do from tomorrow. I'm pressing you as well. What are you going to do that's different from what has been done already?
So, in terms of that meeting with the health subcommittee, you said yourself and everyone else said it's true. Going to that meeting and ask the same questions over and over again will do nothing. So we need to do different things, which is why going outside of that meeting and trying to support the legal action like SOAS is vital. It's why trying to get a government is vital and going through the different avenues for that. You said it. You can't keep doing the same thing.
With all due respect, you know, yes, getting a government is good and all the rest of it, and yes, supporting the group is good. But I want to press you on it. How are you going to? What are you going to do practically? You know, this is we've heard a lot of talk tonight. What are you going to do practically to support the group or to, as a councillor?
Keep doing what I was doing, liaising with the group, looking forward to them for their brilliant work in FOIs, and then taking those questions to the trust and trying to hold an account to it. You know, you've asked me, you said that doesn't matter, and now you're asking me, will I do that? And of course I'll do that because I've continued doing it.
Well, I asked you what you would do differently.
And I said that I'm going to go and get the legal action, and you asked me what I'll keep doing, and that's keep pushing. And in terms of the wider aspect, as I said, trying to get a government, I'll not repeat myself again.
Okay, right, okay. Because I sometimes watch those health subcommittees, and what I see are a lot of councillors who don't seem to say anything.
You're correct.
Yeah.
100%.
So I'll be watching you the next time. Eddie. Right.
Is this the one where I
now,
say one
you're fourth on the list, so you should learn the lessons. Be brief.
So, and the first question I think was regarding what we said at the time when the consultations were reported as as we say. I could call it at a meeting incredibly petty, because it was like a one line if you read the consultation, it's like a one line little asterisk at the bottom. Someone probably spent about 2 or 3 days making this fancy infographic with lots of little logos of all these numbers and things, of all the people and the organisations that had communicated, and then there was just simple Times New Roman at the bottom with a very small font, 30,000 respondents. I thought it was incredibly petty at the time I said it was. In terms of tomorrow, I had already organised a debrief with our health policy committee. I had spoken to them in the build up to this week, and I will be kind of relaying the feelings in this room. And there's genuine anger here. I can, you don't have to be sure to appreciate that.
Relaying what happened at a meeting isn't hard now.
No, absolutely not. But it's a case of
practical measures.
Yeah, it's a case of pushing forward what our next steps are in terms of re-interacting as a party from the leadership down. Like Naomi has met, so as before, has come down numerous occasions to met you once, but she's come down numerous occasions, and we held our party conference actually in Fermanagh in the autumn, and specifically invited Reggie to speak at it regarding health.
It's all in the past, I'm sorry. That's all in the past.
I appreciate that, but I want to make it clear that we are trying to push the issue still. We are a year down the line, and when we saw the crowd at the forum a year ago, people couldn't get in. And Tom has made a good point. Sorry? It definitely wasn't 30,000. Yeah, but my point, and Tom is going to be making it most of the night, is that people power is incredibly important. And yes, it's a year down the line, and we have to prevent fatigue of the issue. I feel like that's what we particularly want, is that it kind of just mumbles out into a little, just with a little bluster. So it's important that we keep stimulating the population and keeping them involved and active. And immediately do a good job of seeing the headlines. It's pushed every week.
Okay, well, stimulation is good. People have been able to stimulate it, so thank you, Eric. Tom?
Okay, thanks. And I'll make one point first just about what we have done. And when we met the SOAS group just a number of weeks ago, we did try something different. And that was to write to what some of the parties agreed, to write to the Department of Health and the Strategic Partnership Group. Well, I circulated a letter after some issues, but I really don't want to get into that because we're here together on that. But that was something different, because we do need to do that. And I said that at that meeting, we can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. We need to think of a strategy and a way forward. Now, I suggested here tonight, and I know Brian's not happy about a lobby group with the Western Trust. Look, it's easy, and I sense the frustration of Pauline and others, and it's easy to have a go at us up here, politicians. We set ourselves up for, I have no sympathy for ourselves, that's quite alright. But it's not going to get us anywhere. What we need to do, and I have to say, I keep repeating this, the only people that can change this decision at the moment is the Western Trust. I don't like them any more than you. I don't like them any more than anybody else. But the reality is they are the only people that can change this.
They're not elected.
I don't particularly like going into the solicitor's office and having to deal with them. But I sometimes have to do it.
Hold on a wee second. Tom, can I just stop you there a wee second? I understand what you're saying, that that the trust are, in your view, are the only people that can change this. But what about people power? Can it not change it?
Absolutely, but that's what I'm trying to say. Why don't we invite the Western Trust and the board? I'm not just talking about the officials here. I'm talking about the board, because it's the board that makes the decisions. Why are we not lobbying? That's why I met the chairman of the board, of the trust board, to see can we not get people from Fermanagh onto it. There's no Fermanagh representatives on the board. Why are we not telling the board chairman and the board officials that? the same as I'm doing. So I think there is a lobby that has to be carried out with the trust, because I keep repeating it. They're the only people at the moment, and irrespective of not trusting them and liking them, we have to get them to change their mind. And we have to get them to offer enhanced payments. We have to get them to recruit the way they have recruited with those other clinical people that they have brought in. And they have. There have been clinical people brought in the last number of months. So why can they not do that for general surgery? That's my point. And unless unless they hear that from that 30,000 group and hear it regularly, we can shout, we'll talk to them, we'll keep talking to them. Unless they hear it from the massive population of Fermanagh, I'm telling you, that's the only thing will change it. Sorry, apologies.
Okay. I think probably you're right in the sense that obviously the Western Trust, the only ones can make a decision on it, but there's the Department of Health, there's the Health Minister, if and when they are appointed. So there are others, but I take your point that you're making. And what time was it now? It's now 9:10.
Chairman, I want to make a proposal.
Right, go on ahead.
I'm proposing that we have to go out of this meeting. Everyone in here is extremely concerned, and so am I. I drove for an hour to get here. I want to just thank Deborah. I've met Deborah several times, but I haven't met any of the others. And good meetings. We had very good meetings in Enniskillen. I'm proposing that we take the decision here tonight to invite the Trust down to Enniskillen, not Zooming or anything else. We invite them in here to a public meeting, because this has gone far too far, and I fully agree with Father Brian. You know, I'm not going to, you have said it, you know, we've no trust. I met the leader of the Trust with a folder here with information. He wouldn't even, he looked at 2 or 3 pages of it. But I'm saying, I'm proposing that we invite the Trust in here to a public meeting, because they're treating us criminally, disgracefully. So that's my proposal. We invite them in here sometime early after Christmas.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think that's about it for tonight. I suppose when you talk about inviting the Trust, we will wait with anticipation to see how that proposal is received. But
can we take a show of hands on it?
Could we have a vote on it?
Have what, sorry?
Could we have a vote on it?
Yes, definitely, yes. I think it would be important to have a vote. How many support the proposal to invite the Trust to a meeting here?
Can we have a quick debate?
Is this the Trust board or the Trust board?
The Trust board, yes. I think it's fair. Yeah.
The board and the Trust.
Yeah. Not the Trust, just the board. Yeah. Okay, just the board. Okay. Well, that's unanimous. And I suppose it's important to remember that we rightly held our politicians to account here tonight, and we have to thank them too, because they did accept the invitation to come here and answer the questions, and some of the questions weren't easy, so I think a round of applause for them. And I would like to thank all the people from the public who came, and all those who asked questions and had the courage to tell their stories about the real impact that the removal of emergency general surgery is having and will continue to have. So thank you everybody on the campaign group as well for their help and assistance to me. And just before we go, Father Brian here is going to close proceedings. There you are. Unaccustomed as you are to public speaking.
And you can be sure, actually tonight, I'm not going to dig up a collection on it. Before we end up, it was a good discussion, it was very well worth having, and it was delightful that so many come out on a night like this. And thank you very much for doing that. You've been really good, really helpful. And I will add my congratulations to the panel for coming here and answering as fast as they can, and for making some proposals for us. But particularly, I want to say a very special word of thanks to the most forceful and impartial and well-informed facilitator that I've met in many a long day, Alan Rogers. Please give him a big round of applause. It was very, very terrific. We also need to say a word of thanks to my fellow SOAS members for organising this, and thank you for all the work that they have done. SOAS is only one group that's working here. It was a very important one. Man Trust is also leading in another way, and sometimes we need to have that communication going better. And sometimes I suppose we need support from our local press very strongly, and I'd ask you to insist through your local letters to the press that the local press does cover all of this, because if the local press doesn't cover it, then we have not having enough to do with it. And sincere thanks to those who have already done so, by the way. Lastly, I think what we need to understand is, I think the meeting that we had in the hall, in the Lakeland Forum, at the end of it, somebody asked me to say a few words off the top of my head. And the one thing I said that night was that I think we need unity. And that was the one thing I asked for on that night, that we would work together and that the political parties would work together for this. And I will make that plea once again. Please, help us in any way that we can. Because, as has been said, we need to work together to do this. It's our hospital. It's not... The reason we have to ask politicians to speak so strongly is that when we go to meet people, they'll always tell us that in the end it's a political decision. Tom's after telling me it's not a political decision, that it's the board that does it. And I'm not contradicting it, I'm saying that you're probably right. Why are we not? The big things that we have to overcome in this is a tendency in Fermanagh to be too damn nice. And all you have to do is look at that map. Look at that map. That's the answer to why we are fighting for our hospital. I was there years ago with Donald and others when we had to do research as to where would the best place be for this acute hospital. And very intricate and deep research was done. And rough figures were that had it been in Omagh, there would have been 10,500 people outside the then golden hour. The fact that it's in Enniskillen is there was less than 100 people outside the golden hour. That's why the hospital's here, because it's the right place and because it's needed here. And the two things we need to overcome is it's a done deal. That's what the Western Trust wants us to do, to think that it's a done deal. And we have fought for a year to make sure that it's not a done deal. And I'm asking for your support tonight for anything from whoever is fighting to retain surgery, emergency surgery in the hospital, support it to show that it's not a done deal. It's our lives they're talking about. It's our lives they're talking about. And it's very obvious, an old man like me, I'll drop dead someday and no hospital will save me. But your children are different. And your future is different. You know, when we had that lovely thing outside on the Diamond on the 12th of November, we had the top people in every industry in Fermanagh there voluntarily to make speeches for us. That was highly organised by the panel that did it. And they did a superb job. And every single one of them said that their business, their tourism, their whatever function that they had in the area, and they were the leaders and everyone, including the leader of the Ulster Farmers Union. And all of them said the same thing, that their futures and their industries were put in danger by the cruel, crass, malicious way that the Western Trust are dealing with this country. And every one of them said that. And our friends in Ballinamallard were able to say, a small little example is a picture, and a picture works well. The picture he said was, in a contest between a steel barrier and a human being, the steel barrier usually wins.
Excuse me, Father. Just one 1 second, right? Can I just make one point?
Yes.
You're missing the fundamental point here, right?
Right.
The trust and trust, they're being blamed, right? But they're civil servants. They're doing a job. The government are responsible. The government are responsible, and they have the oversight. And at the end of the day, civil servants will only do what they're allowed to do by the government.
Just not to overcome what you said, but the government didn't allow them to do it, and they still did it. So that rules out.
Because they know it's what the parties want at the top. They just want that. They want cover to do it now. Stormont is down, right? And they want to do it now while they can get it done, and they'll get the least flack for it, and it'll become a done deal. And then
you're saying the same thing as I am. I'm saying we have to fight for it now.
But don't argue with the board. The parties here need to go out, show real leadership, proper leadership, lead the people.
Well, we can do that too, but the board needs to, because the board made the decision, not the parties, and because Mr. Swan wouldn't send off it. And what we honestly need to do is, I have no problem, I agree with you, I agree entirely with what you're saying, but it's not a contradiction of what I'm saying. We're actually saying the same thing. But you see, now we're saying, that's a great example of it, we need actually to work together, not against each other. There's nobody arguing with somebody else or fighting with somebody else. The bottom line is that we have to be united together to make sure that our hospital doesn't go. Look at the map. There is nobody else in the whole of Northern Ireland has the possibility of having a hospital like we have. There's 84,000 people left without emergency surgery. So we have got to work at that. And I would suggest that because we've had this lovely, good, articulate meeting tonight, that very soon before Christmas, that the various groups involved, SOAS and politicians, we meet together to decide what our strategy will be from now on. And I would agree with that's what we'll have to do. So tonight, thank you very, very much. I appreciate the lovely call. You've been really wonderful. Thanks to our panel, thanks to Alan, thanks to the Westvile Hotel and the Castle family, thanks to the organisers. Happy Christmas, one and all. God bless you all.